welcome you to a new section here on this course on Django. So in this tutorial, basically we are going to be covering the section overview of this section we are about to start. So in the topics, what we are going to cover is that we are going to be covering three important concepts. Now the first concept we are going to be covering in this tutorial is how to create our first app in Django. The second concept we are going to be covering is that how to basically run your server, because whenever you are dealing with websites, you need to run it on a specific server to see what you are doing and if it is going on correctly or not. For example, if you are, let's say, running a C++ code on, let's say, dev C++, then to see that if you are doing it right and that if it is displaying the output, what you need to do is that you need to run that code and you need to see it on the console screen. But in case of Django, you have to run the server, you have to open your browser, you have to copy the address, and then you have to see if whatever you are doing is going on in the right direction. So basically the second concept is all about this, and we are going to see how to basically run your server. In our case, what we are going to do is that we are going to run the localhost server. And what is localhost server? I will be explaining that in this very section as well. The third concept we are going to be covering is about the explanation of the application files. The very same, when we created a project, you might have noticed that some files, almost 6 in number, were created, and I explained those files in very detail. The very same is for creating an application. When you create an application in Django, it is going to create a number of files for you, and these files, what is the purpose of these files, what is created by Django by default in that files, I'll be explaining all those stuff. So this is a very important section, very interesting section, and I hope you stick on to this section to grab each and everything I teach. So I guess that's it with this section overview. Thank you so much guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next tutorial. Welcome you to another tutorial on this course on Django, and this is basically the first tutorial we are going to start on for our new section. In this tutorial, we are going to see how to create our very first application in Django. So the command that is used to create an application in Django is written right in front of you on your screens. It is Python. Then we have to write in manage.py. That is basically the file that was created for our project when we created our very first project. Then we are going to write on start app, and then we are going to write the name of the app. That can be anything you want. So when you basically run this command, what it's going to do is that it's going to populate your files with the different parts of application. Now most of these files are usually named after their purpose. For example, there will be a file named as view that should be used to store views. Then we will have models.py that will be used to store models. Then we will have tests.py that will be used to store test. Then we will have an administration site configuration in admin.py, and we will also have apps.py that will be used for application registration. And it will have some other minimal boilerplate code for working with the associated objects. So we will also have a migration folder that will be used to store migration, which is basically the files that allow you to automatically update your database as you modify your models. Moreover, this folder will have files that will indicate the number of imports. We will see all of that stuff very later in the future tutorials when we will be dealing with databases. So let me just show you what is going to be created. So the first thing you need to know is that where to basically write this command that was Python manage.py start app, something like that. So you're going to scroll right down here and you will see an option named as terminal over here. You are going to click on it. And when you click on it, you are going to see that the working directory is automatically going to be displayed. We are already in the virtual environment. Now, how it is going to indicate that you're in the virtual environment? You will have a venv written right before the directory name. So before the directory name, you can see that we have venv over here, which means that we are already working with virtual environment. You don't need to create any virtual environment because, as I told you earlier, Django, or you may say PyCharm professional version, created automatically for you. Then you will have this working directory. In my case, it is this C users, my name, then PyCharm projects, and then it says my first project. That is the name of the project. We have created. So all you need to do now is that you need to run this command, that is python manage.py start app and the name of the app. So we will just write in python manage.py start app, and then I'm going to, let's say, name it as calc. So when I just press enter, it is going to just create my app. So now my application has been successfully created. Now where can I see that my application has been created or not? What you can do is that you can see right over here that in the my first project, you can see that we have this CALC created over here, which is basically an application. So if you just click on it, you are going to see that it has a number of things. The first thing is init.py, then we have admin.py, then we have apps.py, then we have models.py, then we have tests.py, and then we have views.py. And you can see right at the top of this application over here that we have a migrations folder created, and if you just scroll it down, it only has an init.py in it because for now we don't have any migrations. And as I told you that we are going to deal with migrations when we will be dealing with databases. So for now you don't need to worry about this folder. You don't need to worry about any of this. So from the next tutorial, we are going to start explaining these files, all of these files. So now you know how to create an app, the command to create an app, and the files that will be created when you create an app. So these are basically the files that are going to be created automatically by Django when you create a new app in Django. All of these files have a specific purpose, and none of these files is created without use. Everything has a use over here. So what is their use? That we will start on from the next tutorial. So for now, I guess that's it with this tutorial. Thank you so much guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next tutorial. Welcome you to another tutorial on this course on Django. So in the previous tutorial, we have created an application, and with that application, we got some files. So in this tutorial, what we are going to do is that we are going to start explanation of those files that were created in the previous tutorial. So without wasting any more time, let's move on to PyCharm. And what we are going to do is that we are going to explain them one by one. So I will just close this and open the first file. Now this is basically the file that is init.py. It is basically the first file you will find in the application created. This is the constructor file of the application. The initial initializations can be done using this file, but most often this file is not used because there are no initial initializations in the beginning. All the initializations go on in the respective files, and often this file is not given any kind of considerations. The next file we have right over here is admin.py. Admin.py is basically used to display your models in Django admin panel. Also, you can customize your admin panel using admin.py file. Django has a built-in admin interface that reads the metadata from your models, such as fields, and lets you perform CRUD operations for free. Now in here, the first thing you can see is that it says from django.contribute import admin. Now this is what that will be present already by default. This means that this admin.py is the very same as Django admin, and it is the file that will be the main controller part of the application. The main commands of the application will go through this and will be handled by other files in the application. So this is basically, I guess, the most important file that we have in our application created. The next file is apps.py. Now this file is created to help the user include any application configuration for the application you have created. Using this, you can configure some of the attributes of the application. From the application configuration documentation, application configuration objects store metadata for an application. Now in this application, you have certain things that have already been written for you by Django. The first is from django.apps import app config. Now this is what will be present by default. This means that this app.py has a configuration of the entire application. So this is the file that contains the configuration of your entire application you have just created. Then you have a class named as calc_config, and in which you are receiving an object that is app_config, and in here you have name equal to the name of the app you have created. So this class is also there by default. The calc at the start is the name of the app you have created. In your case, if you have given the app a different name, then it will be something else, but in my case the name of the app is calc, so the class name is calc_config. So if you are creating, let's say, your first app and your name of the application is your first app, then it is going to be your first app config. And similarly, whatever name you have given, it will be like that name. So in this class, you can see a variable that is basically an object to this class named as app_config that is received as an object right over here. Now, this value is basically set by default and is the very same used for any app you create. This object basically carries the configuration details. Then in the class inside, we have name equal to calc, which means that we can make your application load this app config subclass by specifying the name equal to calc. So our application in this case, that is calc, it will load this app config subclass. In your case, this name is going to be changed if you have given your app a different name. So this is also a very important class. It is basically managing all the configuration of your application. The next class we have is models.py. A model is basically a class that represents table or collection in our database, and where every attribute of the class is a field of the table or collection. The entire models you create will be created in this class, that is models.py. Now in this class, the first statement you can see is from Django.db import models. Now when I was telling you about models, I told you that models are basically what are going to be sketched in the database. So that's why we have Django.db over here, and then we have this import models. So you can see this Django.db where db is basically database, which means models are going to be associated with the database. A simple model creation will be discussed shortly, so you don't need to worry about this stuff over here. We will be discussing that in a very short time, so you will then understand what I'm saying. The next class we have is tests.py. A conventional place for an application's test is basically the application test.py file. This testing system will automatically find tests in any file whose name begins with test. The best class for most tests in Django.test.test case, this test class creates a clean database before its tests are run, and it runs every test function in its own transaction. The class also owns a test client that you can use to simulate a user interacting with the code at the view level. Now in this class, you already have something default that says from Django.tests import test case. So all you can do is that you can either create all the test cases in a single test.py file and organize them, or you can have different classes. How all this is done is a part of the advanced topic, so I don't want to discuss them over here to confuse you. So all you need to know now is about only that what is test.py and what is its purpose. The last class we have over here is views.py. Now, as suggested by its name, this Python file is going to contain functions that are called the view functions. Now, what is basically a view function? A view function, or view for short, is simply a Python function that takes a web request and returns a web response. For the sake of putting the code somewhere, the convention is to put views in a file called views.py placed in your project or application directory, as you can see right over here. Now in this class, we have the first statement that says from Django.shortcuts import render. So what is the purpose of render over here? The render is basically a function, and this function takes the request object as its first argument, a template name as its second argument, and a dictionary as its optional third argument. It returns an HTTP response object of the given template rendered with the given context. So in simple words, what is going to happen here is that request is going to be received here, and it will be processed and a response will be generated using the render function that is being imported from Django.shortcuts. So all of these functions will be discussed in practical form from the very next tutorial, and you will then get a practical idea of what I've been telling you in this tutorial. So I hope you have understood all these files, you have understood the purpose of all these files and how to use them, where to use them. We are going to start on in the future tutorials. So for this tutorial, that's all. Thank you so much guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next tutorial. To another tutorial on this course on Django. In this tutorial, we will see how to run our server. Now, as I told you before that we have a manage.py that is helping us everywhere to establish and manage our connections with the server. So manage.py file is going to help us to run the server. For now, since we don't have any address bot, so what we will do is that we will work on our local host, or you may call it the local server. Now, how we will have access to our local server using a command. Now, basically, when you are dealing with a professional website and you are creating for, let's say, some firm, then you need to buy the domain for that website. Now, how to buy a domain, that will be discussed later. But if you don't have a domain and you are just creating the website and you need to know that what is going on actually, then you have to run it on local server. Now, when you're running a website on a local server, what the system do is that it provides you with an IP address. You have to run the server on your PyCharm. Then you have to copy that address. You have to paste it in your browser, run it, and it will run. But that address that will be given to you by Django, or you may say PyCharm, it will be only valid for your own system, because if you try it on another system in which the server is not running, or you may say that the local server is not running, it is not going to run on that system. So basically the command that is going to be used for that purpose is python manage.py run server. Now manage.py, as I told you, is the file that is going to help us to establish connection with the server, and run server is basically to run the server, as simple as that. So let's just move on to our compiler. Now, if you are using Python 3, then instead of Python, what you have to do is that you have to write in Python 3, but for almost every other case, Python is going to work perfectly fine. So in the terminal that is in the compiler built-in, what you're going to do is that you will write a simple Python command, that is python manage.py run server. One thing that has to be cross-checked here before running this command is that you are in the right directory. So in our case, we have to basically switch to the project directory. Now in our case, as I told you before, that we are already in our working directory, that is C users my name and PyCharm projects and my first project, and we are already having a virtual environment. So what you're going to do over here is that you're going to write in Python manage.py and you are going to write in run server. So now if I click enter, it is going to take some time because it is now running the server, and it is going to fetch me an IP address on which this local server is basically going to run. So it is going to performing system checks, and now as you can see that it has provided me an IP address. If you just move it just a bit at the top, so what it do is that first it performed the system checks, it identified 0 errors. Then if you just scroll down, it is talking about migrations, and as I told you, you don't need to worry about migrations for now. And then it is telling you about the Django version, that is 3.0. Then it is telling you that it is using the settings file of my first project.settings, and it is going to starting development server at http 127.0.0.1, and then this 8000 is basically the port on which your server is going to run. Now, what is basically a port? A port is basically where the request is going to be received. So this is basically the port from where the requests are going to be received successfully. So I will just now copy this address by pressing Ctrl C only once, because if you press Ctrl C twice, it is going to quit the server. So I will now move on to Chrome browser and I will just paste this address over here. And what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to click on enter, and you are going to see that it has displayed me a site. Now this is basically something that is built in by Django, and this is the built-in page because since now you have done nothing so far, you have not created any kind of code, you have not created any kind of website. All you have done is that you have run the server, you have copied that address, or you can say that IP, and you have just pasted it over here along with the port number. So what it's going to do is that it's going to display the Django default site for you. As you can see that it says Django at the top over here. Then it says that you're dealing with Django 3.0. That is the latest version of Django, and what we are teaching in this course is the latest version of Django, that is Django 3.0. And then it says the installed worked successfully. Congratulations, you are seeing this page because debug equal to true is in your settings files and you have not configured any URLs. And as you know that since we have not done anything, so we have done nothing. So you can open the Django documentation from here. You can get started with Django from here. You can go on with Django community from here. So that is what is going to be something from the Django documentation. So you don't need to worry about what this is going on. And this is only the default site Django has displayed for you because for now you have done nothing. So now let me just close the server. And now one more thing before we close the server is that whatever you do on the browser is going to be displayed here. Now, as you can see that these lines, that was get HTTP what, this static get again, this again, and all these lines have been displayed after the server has been run and we visited the website. So everything you do, any kind of error generated is going to be generated right over here. So if I press Ctrl+C over here, the server is going to just stop. So now if I just go back, paste this address again, click on enter, it is not going to display me anything and it says the site cannot be reached. Now why it is displaying me this error message is because it says that 127.2.1 refused to connect. Now why did it refuse to connect? Because we have closed our server. So if I just click the upper key, it is going to display me the command. Click enter. And it is going to take some time and the server is now running again. Refresh this page and it has displayed me the Django page again. So that was all about running the server. What is going to happen if you are not running the server, and what is basically this IP address, what is this port number, and where this address can run. So as I told you that this address is only going to run on your system because the server is only running on your system. So in the next tutorial what we are going to do is that we are going to just skip this thing and we are going to create our own website. Now since we are in the very basic stage, so in the next tutorial what we are going to do is that we are going to create a website that is only going to display a hello world message. So how this is going to be done is going to be very interesting. So I hope that you stick on to this section, and in the next tutorial you will learn how to create a website. So I guess that's it with this tutorial. Thank you so much guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial.